The air on Osrath 4 shimmered faintly with the moonlight, like silver fog rolling over glass. I stood in the borrowed mineral silk quarters, half-showered and completely unaware that the lock command hadn't translated right. That's when the doors slid open. And they saw me. Not just anyone, them. The twins. Tall, luminescent-skinned, and terrifyingly elegant, the daughters of the Varathi ambassador, Kiel and Vexa, stood frozen in the threshold, their eyes glowing a soft bioluminescent blue. I was holding nothing but a damp towel. It wasn't embarrassment that hit me first. It was the way their pupils dilated. Like predators. The silence between us stretched thin, only broken by the sound of a single drop of water sliding down my collarbone and hitting the floor. Kiel was the first to move. She tilted her head like she was studying a puzzle she'd never seen. Her voice, low and velvet smooth, curled into the space. Human males are significantly less armored than we anticipated. Vex's voice followed, sharper but laced with something curious. He's smaller than the Holos. But, her gaze lingered, too long, too deliberately. Shaped with purpose. I felt the heat crawl up my chest. Yeah, I didn't think anyone was using this hall right now. My translator didn't trigger the privacy seal. Kiel finished for me, stepping in. I backed up instinctively, bumping into the heat-curved shower wall behind me. I tightened the towel around my waist. Look, I didn't mean for this. I was just following protocol. Officer-level housing, second corridor. That's what command said. Vexa stepped in too. Now I was cornered. Between twins. Alien twins. Who had just seen all of me. Worse? They weren't looking away. Protocol, Vexa repeated, tasting the word like it was strange fruit. That's a military term. You're not a soldier. So why are you here, human? Kiel's eyes narrowed, softly, not threatening. You're the one who repaired our cryosystems. The one who solved the thermal problem no Varathi could. I'm an engineer, I admitted, still holding the towel like it was a holy relic. Consultant class. Human Space Corps. Kiel's smile was slow. Not mocking. Not amused. Interested. Interesting, she said. There was no protocol for this. Being stared down, undressed, and analyzed by 2 7-foot-tall alien women with matching silver tattoos and too many questions. The Varathi were famous for their mirror bonding, twins raised in psychic sync, communicating in glances, decisions split with logic and emotions split again. The twins were infamous. Noble-born. Gorgeous. And until now, untouchable. You repaired our systems with heat redirection, Vexa murmured, brushing a hand along a silver heat vent on the wall. Using human materials. Copper tubing and silicone mesh, I replied. Basic thermodynamic modeling. Anyone could have. No. Not anyone. Kiel cut me off gently. Their eyes weren't just watching. They were searching. They circled me like warm shadows. Vexa touched the edge of my towel, not pulling it, just curious. I flinched. And that seemed to amuse her. Fear or arousal? She asked calmly. My throat caught. Excuse me? Kiel's voice was closer now, breath nearly touching my shoulder. We read your endocrine spikes. Your pheromone levels. Human bodies are loud to us. I didn't invite you to read anything. I shot back, pulse thundering. Neither did we invite you into our chambers, Kiel returned calmly. My heart raced. The temperature felt higher, like their presence alone altered the humidity. My towel was failing. And the worst part? I couldn't tell if I was more scared of being caught, or of what might happen if I wasn't. Then came the real curveball. Kiel's fingers gently touched the back of my neck, right where the translator node sat embedded. I tensed, every nerve firing. This is faulty, she whispered. It misread the symbols on our door. It invited you into a private space, ours. Vexa stepped closer, now chest to chest. Her voice dropped. And now, tradition is invoked. What tradition? They both looked at each other. That silent twin glance that no outsider could decode. Then Kiel spoke. Varathi law states that when one of noble blood witnesses another's unshielded form, a ritual of clarity must be performed. Vex's hand reached up to cup my cheek, strangely gentle. Her voice was almost tender. To ensure no deception. No hidden weapons. No hidden truths. I swallowed hard. What kind of ritual? I asked, not sure I wanted the answer. They smiled in perfect synchronicity. One that begins with touch. And before I could move, speak, or run, they placed their fingers gently on my chest. My skin flared with electric heat, like someone had opened a circuit that had been waiting my whole life to connect. The towel fell. And their eyes changed. This wasn't curiosity anymore. This was something else. Something older. Sacred. Binding. My heart pounded as realization slammed into me. I had just triggered a cultural rite. And I had no idea what it meant. Their fingers still pressed against my bare chest, radiating a strange heat. Not burning, bonding. I wasn't cold anymore. I was wrapped in something electric. Their touch wasn't carnal, but it wasn't innocent either. It pulsed like memory, like knowledge, like something old. Kiel's lips parted as if she could feel my heartbeat echoing in her own chest. Vex's fingers splayed just slightly, tracing the line of my collarbone. Then the light began, an ethereal glow spreading from their hands across my skin in shimmering filaments. Like nerves made of starlight. I gasped. The ritual has started, Kiel whispered. You must not break contact now. If you do, Vexa added, her voice low and solemn, you will die. The hell? That wasn't part of the misunderstanding I'd expected. My hands twitched to pull away, instinct screaming to retreat, but their eyes locked me in place. Not with force. With urgency. This is the clarity bond, Kiel said, voice threaded with emotion I didn't yet understand. Our species doesn't just see. We read. Truth is visible to us through resonance. When one sees another's unguarded form, intent must be proven. Transparency must be shared, Vexa explained, slowly drawing a line of light from my shoulder to my wrist. I blinked. You mean I triggered a soul scan? A psychic honesty test? Crude. But accurate, Kiel nodded. I felt the tingle move into my ribs. My memories. I wasn't just being seen, I was being understood. Everything I feared, everything I wanted, everything I had hidden away beneath logic and protocol, it floated toward them. And the worst part? I wanted them to see. The ritual intensified. They guided me, hand over hand, toward a kneeling position. Not submissive, equal. They knelt with me. All three of us breathing in sync. A low hum began to resonate from the walls, like the room itself recognized the ritual. I could see their faces clearer now in the bioluminescent glow, reflections of each other, but not identical. Kiel's gaze was softer, more restrained. Vex's was fierce, storm-like. Yin and Yang wrapped in alien grace. We have never performed this with an off-worlder, Kiel confessed, touching her forehead to mine briefly. And yet, your resonance aligns. Perfectly, Vexa said, breath hitching. My voice cracked. And what happens after the ritual? We'll know your truth, Kiel answered. And you will know ours. And if we are compatible, Vexa said carefully, the bond remains. For life. Life? I stiffened. Their eyes read me instantly. Fear, Kiel said gently. You fear being known. Humans wear masks with pride, Vexa added. But beneath that, you crave to be seen. The bond flickered. Pain stabbed behind my eyes. I nearly recoiled, but Kiel reached out, cupping the back of my head. Stay with us, she whispered. Don't resist. Let us see. Flashback spark. Suddenly, images exploded behind my eyes. Not just memories, feelings. My first heartbreak. The loneliness of Earth's orbital assignments. The death of my father, and the ache I never cried out loud. The first time I looked up at the stars and wished I'd belonged somewhere else. And then, them. The first moment I'd seen them across the cryodeck. The strange stillness they carried. The fascination I'd buried under protocol. They saw it all. And I saw them. Their truth. I didn't expect it. Suddenly I felt their pain. Not memories, echoes. Kiel, a lifetime of being the quiet one. Always expected to temper her sister's fire, yet never allowed to burn for herself. Vexa, the fierce protector, raised to be heir to the Varathi legacy, taught that desire was weakness, but secretly longing for a soul who could match her. I trembled as the weight of their twin bond settled in me. This wasn't just emotional data, it was love. The kind they only ever had for each other. And now, it was opening to me. The glow subsided. The room dimmed. We were all panting lightly, skin damp, eyes glassy from the storm we'd just ridden together. I blinked, trying to speak. That was. You pass, Kiel whispered, a soft smile playing at her lips. Too well, Vexa added, and for the first time, I heard fear in her voice. What do you mean? Kiel looked at her sister. Vexa nodded. Then they spoke in unison. You've triggered a mating signal. My heart stopped. What? The bond confirms physical compatibility, mental alignment, and emotional resonance, Kiel said softly. Among Varathi, that means only one thing, Vexa added. Kiel leaned forward, touching my cheek. You are eligible. Eligible for what? I demanded. They didn't answer right away. Then Vexa whispered. To be joined. I stood, stumbling back as the implications settled in. To both of us. And behind them, the walls of the room shifted, holograms activating, revealing ancient Varathi text, and images of triads, bonded threes rare and sacred. The translation clicked in my ear. One soul seen by two. One love held by three. And the final blow came when Kiel said, The ambassador has been informed. The council is en route. And by dawn, we may be married. The chamber doors burst open. Cold wind tore through the room as armored guards stepped in, Varathi elite, faces half-masked, their crystalline blades humming with restraint fields. Behind them, the Varathi ambassador himself. Towering. Cloaked in blue and gold lineage silk. His eyes locked on me like I'd spit in his temple. What? Have you done? My mouth opened. No sound came out. Kiel stood between us instantly, her body shielding mine. He invoked the ritual by accident. But the bond held. It's not his fault. The bond held? The ambassador snarled. Then we are already damned. Everything fell apart in the space between heartbeats. I could still feel their touch on my skin, the warmth of the bond humming faintly under my ribs. But now that sacred intimacy was being shattered by political dread. The room once filled with starlight and connection was now filled with tension, accusation, and alien law. Vexa stepped forward, her voice steady. He didn't resist. He opened himself freely. He saw us. Not just our bodies, our truth. That alone makes him worthy. He is human. The ambassador spat, stepping closer. A low-oxygen biped with unstable genetics and an even more unstable political structure. You dared let him trigger the triad resonance? Kiel's voice cracked like a whip. We didn't let him. It chose him. My chest tightened. What does that mean? I asked, my voice quieter than I wanted. Are you saying the bond isn't something you control? Both sisters turned to me. Kiel's eyes shimmered with a sadness I hadn't seen before. Vex's jaw clenched. The clarity bond is sacred, Kiel said. But sometimes, it's sentient. A relic from the ancients. It chooses, not us. Vexa added. And it hasn't chosen anyone in 500 years. I stepped forward, heart hammering. So now what? What, a mistake? A problem to erase? The ambassador drew a breath. If we annul the bond before it completes, your mind will collapse from psychic rupture. If we let it continue, you'll become part of a political triad that the galaxy will see as blasphemous. A human, married into the ruling bloodline. His disgust wasn't subtle. Then why not let it happen? I asked bitterly. Because it risks war. The word dropped like a bomb. Silence. The Matar Confederacy already suspects the Varathi of consorting with outside species. They fear human influence, your aggression, your independence. If they find out you've been bonded into our nobility, they'll declare the treaty void. That means fleets. That means fire. Kiel's voice was barely a whisper. And if we reject you, you die. Vexa turned to me, and for the first time, I saw it, not just conflict, but guilt. Her strong facade cracked just enough for me to see the emotion behind it. We didn't plan this. But I felt you. Your sorrow. Your strength. You didn't hide anything. That means more to us than law. I laughed bitterly, but there was no humor in it. Great. So I'm either a martyr, a war trigger, or a political hostage in a marriage I didn't ask for. Kiel stepped close, placed a hand on my chest. You are not a hostage. You are chosen. That matters to us. But does it matter enough to fight your own bloodline? I asked. She didn't answer. A soft pulse echoed through the chamber, the sound of a council beacon. One of the guards turned. The full circle of elders has arrived. They demand immediate judgment. Kiel's eyes met Vex's. If we wait for judgment, they'll strip us of the bond, Kiel whispered. They'll kill him for balance. Vex's voice was fire and steel. Then we force a right. Now. What right? I asked. They both looked at me. The trial of continuance, Vexa said. An ancient path. If three willingly enter it, the bond cannot be severed, even by the circle. Kiel added. But we must cross the rhyme spire. As one. As bonded. The name sounded like legend. I knew it from alien history courses. An ancient ice labyrinth said to test not just the body, but the soul of any bonded triad. You'll face hallucinations, hunger, emotional projection, Vexa said. Your fears. Our fears. If you survive, the galaxy can't deny you. And if I fail? Kiel's voice dropped. Then the bond shatters. And so does your mind. I looked at both of them. These two alien women who had seen me in ways no human ever had. Who offered not just love, but a place to belong. Maybe I should have hesitated. But instead I reached for their hands. Let's walk the spire. The twin doors opened beyond us, revealing the frozen stars cape of the Rime frontier. Wind howled in from the cliffs beyond. No warmth. No comfort. Just ice and truth. We stepped forward together. And behind us, the ambassador whispered to himself. Either he's a fool, or something far more dangerous. The wind screamed like a living thing. We stepped into the Rime spire under a blood-orange sky, its clouds frozen in motion, stretched like scars across the heavens. The world was deathly silent beneath the shrieking wind. The path ahead shimmered with ice, sharp as glass, ancient as memory. And it wasn't just cold. It felt us. The trial had begun. I reached out instinctively, taking Kiel's hand in one and Vex's in the other. Their skin was warm despite the frost. One steady, one trembling. They didn't speak. But I heard them in my bones. This is the place where the bond is forged, or shattered. 2. Character and conflict. The ice maze curled ahead, luminous and alive. Inside, the walls didn't reflect light. They reflected truth. We stepped into the first corridor. The air thickened. Frost formed on my eyelashes. Then, the first illusion struck. The walls rippled. My breath caught in my throat. It was Earth. A childhood hallway. My father's voice, shouting through a locked door. The night he died. My last words, angry, unfinished. I fell to my knees. Kiel reached for me, her voice low and shaking. What are you seeing? The worst of me, I whispered. What I never forgave. Vexa stepped in front of me, slammed her palm against the ice wall. This trial feeds on shame. It's trying to split us. The illusion shattered. We kept walking. But every step forward meant another truth had to bleed. The second chamber belonged to them. I watched as Kiel sank to her knees. Her breath came in ragged gasps. Her calm exterior crumbled. I see her, she whispered. I followed her gaze. A woman, Varathi older, stern, eyes of fire. Your mother? I asked. Kiel nodded, her voice breaking. She taught us to fear touch. To believe that connection made us weak. I broke the rules the moment I let you see me. I want to belong. But I don't know how. I knelt beside her, wrapped an arm around her shoulders. You don't have to know everything, I said softly. You just have to stop running from what you feel. Kiel leaned into me. But then Vexa cried out. Her back arched, face twisted with fury. No. No, I'm not like her. Another illusion, this one hers. We turned and saw her own reflection snarling at her from the ice. You crave control. You dominate. You'll break him like you broke the others. That's not true, Vexa shouted. I didn't use him, I loved him. Her fists pounded the ice. Who? I asked quietly. She trembled. My last bondmate. A Varathi male. Strong. Loyal. But he couldn't match me. I pushed too hard, and he snapped. Kiel rose, stepped toward her twin. You blamed yourself all these years. I was to blame, Vexa whispered. And I was afraid, if this bond with you breaks too, I'll lose myself completely. I stepped forward, took her hand. You don't have to control everything, Vexa. You just have to choose, now. With me. With her. For a moment, her grip was rigid. Then she broke. Tears, clear and glowing, spilled from her eyes, freezing instantly on her cheeks. She pressed her forehead to mine. I choose. The chamber responded. Light exploded around us, shattering the illusions. The path beyond the ice opened. We stepped forward as one. The final chamber was silent. No illusions. No memories. Just a pedestal, carved of crystalline bone. Atop it, a triad ring, 3 interwoven bands of light, still shifting, as if unsure whether to form. Kiel spoke first. This is the seal of triad continuance. It will not bind unless all 3 declare truth. I nodded slowly. So, we confess. Vexa placed her hand on the pedestal. I feared you, human. Feared your fragility. But I saw your strength in surrender. I want you, not as a shield or challenge, but as a partner. Kiel followed. I saw you, not just your body, but your pain. And in it, I saw myself. I want to learn love through you. Even if it scares me. Their eyes turned to me. My throat tightened. My chest ached with the weight of everything they'd given me. I placed my hand on the pedestal. I came here thinking I didn't belong anywhere. That humans were just guests in alien corridors. But with you, I feel known. I want to stay. To fight. To love. You both. The rings spun faster, 1, 2, 3, until they blazed white-hot. Then the pedestal cracked. The rings burst apart. Smoke curled upward. Kiel staggered. Vexa cursed. I gasped. What happened? I choked out. And then the hologram activated, an ancient message, encoded deep in Varathi stone. A voice spoke, calm, genderless, old as the stars. Warning. Human genetic resonance exceeds threshold. Bond rejected, not for incompatibility, but for sovereign threat classification. The message continued. This being is not mate class. It is ascendant class. Potential progenitor. Override all union protocols. We stared, stunned. What the hell does that mean? I breathed. Kiel looked at me, eyes wide in reverence. Vex's hand trembled in mine. It means, she whispered, you're not just our mate. You're the next Genesis. Behind us, the wind howled again. But it no longer sounded like fear. It sounded like fate.